Let us put the time frame of 160 million years into perspective. The evolution of humans from early primates to the present day took only 3 million years. This includes a span of 2 million years spent foraging on the African savanna. In other words, dinosaurs existed for more than 50 times the duration of human evolution. 50 times that duration. Theoretically, the Tyrannosaurus rex should be piloting interstellar starships. And colonizing Mars by now. Triceratops should have long since mastered nuclear fusion, and pterosaurs should have at least developed modern aeronautics. But the reality is, throughout 160 million years, dinosaurs never learned to fashion a single stone tool. They never mastered the use of fire. They did not even conceive of the wheel. They simply existed in a primitive state, grazing and hunting for 160 million years, until they were wiped out by a mass extinction event. Is this normal? It is highly anomalous. Why did dinosaurs with such a vast expanse of time fail to even reach the threshold of civilization? Was it due to a lack of biological intelligence? Or is there an insurmountable barrier on the path of evolution that the dinosaurs were biologically unable to cross? Today, we will investigate why the dinosaurs, the undisputed rulers of Earth, were destined never to achieve civilization. Let us consider a significant physiological statistic. The human brain accounts for only 2% of total body weight. However, its energy consumption is disproportionately high. It consumes a staggering 20% of the body's energy. This implies that 1/5 of your daily caloric intake is dedicated solely to fueling neural activity. Even more significantly, the metabolic cost is even higher in children. It can reach 50% or even 60% of total energy use. For a 5 or 6-year-old child, the majority of nutritional intake is consumed by brain development. Now consider the dinosaurs, taking the Tyrannosaurus rex as a case study. This apex predator weighed approximately 6 tons, yet its brain weighed a mere 400 grams. It possessed less cognitive capacity than a domestic dog. Why? Because the metabolic cost was unsustainable. The Tyrannosaurus rex required massive quantities of meat every single day, amounting to nearly 600 kilograms. Simply maintaining its massive muscle mass and skeletal structure consumed its entire energy budget. There was no metabolic surplus to support an energy-expensive brain. Its energy intake barely covered basic physiological maintenance. In the dinosaurs' physiological energy budget, the brain was the lowest priority. Any individual that diverted energy toward neural development would lack the physical strength to forage by nightfall and would fall victim to predation. Natural selection would immediately eliminate such inefficient genetic traits. However, this was not the most critical factor. The true constraint on dinosaur evolution was the environment they inhabited. Consider the state of the Earth during the Mesozoic era. It was essentially a biological paradise. According to paleontological data, throughout the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods, global average temperatures were 8 to 10 degrees higher than today. Even Antarctica was covered in dense forests. There were no ice ages. There were no extreme weather events. Vegetation was lush and ubiquitous. Herbivorous dinosaurs could find food with minimal effort. Resources were so abundant they were practically inexhaustible. As for the carnivores, prey was plentiful and readily available. It was an ecosystem of endless abundance. The climate was stable. Food sources were reliable. Even predator-prey dynamics were predictable and consistent. In such an environment, there was no evolutionary pressure to develop higher intelligence. A Tyrannosaurus rex, measuring 13 meters and weighing 6 tons, possessed a bite force capable of crushing solid bone. It merely had to open its jaws. To assert its dominance over the land. High intelligence was superfluous. Investing energy in teeth and muscle yielded a far greater survival advantage. This illustrates a fundamental law of evolutionary biology. Without environmental pressure, there is no driver for evolutionary adaptation. You might argue that, given enough time, evolution should be inevitable. But you would be wrong. Time is not a universal solution. Dinosaurs existed in an ecological paradise for 160 million years, yet they effectively trapped themselves in an evolutionary dead end. They invested all their evolutionary resources solely into increasing their size and physical strength. It became an addiction, a path of no return. True intelligence is never forged in comfortable environments, but rather in desperation. Our human ancestors understood this reality all too well. Even if dinosaurs had the potential for intelligence, their anatomy strictly prohibited it. Let us examine the fundamental tool of civilization, the hand. The human hand contains 27 bones and 34 muscles, capable of performing over 1,000 precise movements. We can grasp a single grain of rice, shape stone tools, weave fabrics, write scripts, and operate complex precision instruments. The hand and the brain are inextricably linked. Neuroscience reveals that the brain regions responsible for fine motor manipulation and those governing logical reasoning and language evolved in synchronization. But what about the dinosaurs? The Tyrannosaurus rex diminutive forelimbs are a common subject of ridicule. Those tiny appendages could barely scratch an itch, let alone manufacture tools. Other large dinosaurs fared no better. Their forelimbs were either too short, too bulky, or strictly adapted for locomotion. Just imagine a multi-ton dinosaur attempting to bend down and polish a stone axe. The scenario is absurd. Their biological architecture, from its very inception, was not designed to facilitate intelligence. They were built as biological war machines, not thinking machines. Once a species embarks on that evolutionary path, there is no turning back. One might ask, what about small dinosaurs? Consider the Troodon, for example. It had a body mass comparable to a human, relatively dexterous claws, and a high brain volume relative to other dinosaurs. Canadian paleontologist Dale Russell even proposed a hypothesis. If the asteroid had not struck Earth, the Troodon might have evolved into a dinosauroid. It sounds like science fiction, doesn't it? However, this hypothesis has a fatal flaw. While the Troodon's encephalization quotient was indeed high, reaching 5.3 compared to a kangaroo's 0.7, making it a genius in the dinosaur world, the problem remains. It could not metabolically support a human-level brain. The human brain weighs approximately 1.4 kilograms and consumes 20% of the body's total energy. It requires 20% of the body's energy. A Troodon weighed only 60 kilograms. Asking it to sustain a brain weighing several hundred grams is impossible. Where would the energy come from? This is what we call the energy bottleneck. The physiology of small dinosaurs simply could not support the biological power plant required for civilization. It could not support the high energy demands of a complex brain. Large dinosaurs had sufficient energy, but their anatomy prohibited tool use. Small dinosaurs had the potential structure, but lacked the energy budget. This created an unsolvable evolutionary paradox with no way out. But there is an even more critical factor. University of Washington paleontologist Peter Ward proposed a compelling theory. The atmospheric oxygen levels during the Mesozoic era may have dropped to as low as 12% to 15% in certain periods, compared to 21% today. The brain is the most oxygen-demanding organ. If deprived of oxygen for just a few seconds, brain cells begin to malfunction. Evolving a high-energy brain in a low-oxygen environment presents a difficulty level of hellish proportions. It likely wasn't that dinosaurs didn't want to become intelligent, but that atmospheric conditions fundamentally forbade it. It is akin to attempting to run a marathon, with only half the necessary oxygen available in the air. You would be gasping for breath after 2 steps. Completing the race would be impossible. Now here comes the critical question. Given that the dinosaurian evolutionary strategy hit a dead end, how did humans eventually embark on the path to high intelligence? The answer may surprise you. Humans did not select for encephalization because of inherent cleverness, but because they were driven by extreme desperation. Consider the ecological position of early human ancestors. Consider the situation of our ancestors at that time. In terms of raw strength, they were inferior to apex predators like lions and tigers. In terms of speed, they trailed far behind cheetahs, and their natural weaponry of claws and teeth was negligible by comparison. On the African savanna, human ancestors were essentially mobile sources of protein, easily dismantled by any carnivorous megafauna. Facing this existential threat, the species faced a binary choice: total extinction or a radical evolutionary adaptation. Thus began a series of forced adaptations. Climatic shifts caused widespread deforestation, forcing our ancestors to descend from the canopy. Adopting bipedal locomotion allowed them to scan the horizon and detect threats in advance. Walking upright liberated the forelimbs, enabling the manipulation of objects and the fabrication of tools. Tools facilitated hunting, providing access to high-protein meat. This animal protein provided the necessary energetic foundation, creating the conditions required for brain expansion. Later, the mastery of fire proved crucial. Cooked food is significantly more digestible and yields a higher caloric return. It was this cascade of reactions that drove the progressive increase in cranial capacity. However, this transition was far from smooth. Consider this sobering statistic. Research from the National Academy of Sciences indicates that during the most critical bottleneck, the entire population of late Homo sapiens was reduced to a few hundred individuals. We barely escaped extinction. This was the evolutionary cost of developing a complex brain, the near total annihilation of the species. The reason is that neural tissue is metabolically expensive. A pregnant female must consume 60% more energy to support fetal brain development. For the first 5 years of an infant's life, the majority of nutritional intake is diverted to the brain, causing somatic growth to stagnate. Slow to run and slow to climb, human offspring are exceptionally vulnerable to predation. If not for an extraordinary stroke of luck, our species would not exist today. Therefore, the human evolutionary trajectory was an anomaly, a desperate gamble born of necessity. In contrast, the dinosaurian investment in physical robustness represented the standard risk-averse path in biology. This distinction is crucial. Dinosaurs pursued a trajectory of physical dominance, while humans pursued a trajectory of cognition and tool use. These two evolutionary paths are divergent and mutually exclusive. One cannot pursue both. An organism cannot simultaneously optimize for maximum physical power and peak cognitive capacity. One cannot dominate solely through musculature while also reshaping the environment through precision engineering. Dinosaurs allocated their metabolic resources and genetic potential entirely toward physical prowess, biological weaponry, and gigantism. Once a species specializes this deeply, there is no evolutionary turning back. Human ancestors, forced into an ecological corner, relied on nocturnal avoidance, memory, and simple tools for survival, inadvertently stumbling upon the pathway to higher intelligence. Evolution is not a fair competition. It is a game of ecological niche allocation. The dinosaurian model was stable and highly successful. There was no selective pressure to switch strategies. Why change? Change implies risk and the potential for elimination. Some might ask, over a span of 160 million years, did no dinosaur ever evolve sufficient intelligence to attempt building a civilization? Scientists have seriously investigated this hypothesis. From the Triassic to the Cretaceous, we have abundant dinosaur fossils from every epoch. However, across all these periods, we have never discovered tools, structures, or even the simplest evidence of material fabrication. With such biodiversity preserved over such vast timescales, the total absence of tools is a profound indicator. This illustrates that, from beginning to end, the dinosaurs never embarked on the path toward civilization. Across 160 million years, not a single Newtonian dinosaur emerged. Why? Because in the world of the dinosaurs, anyone who stopped to contemplate was immediately devoured. Large carnivores were constantly refining their predatory skills. Giant herbivores were desperate to increase their bulk and develop armor plating. Small dinosaurs were occupied with improving their running speed and alertness. There was simply no evolutionary trajectory that pushed them toward abstract thought, linguistic structure, or social collaboration. Dinosaurs did not need to think. They required stronger muscles, greater velocity, and sharper teeth. This was their strategy for survival. Let me share another harsh reality. The emergence of mammals occurred roughly around the same time as the dinosaurs. However, during the era of dinosaur dominance, mammals were suppressed to the very bottom of the food chain. They either hid in underground burrows and caves by day, or dared to emerge only under the cover of night. In fact, most mammals altered their evolutionary strategy. They evolved to become smaller and developed superior night vision. This was the only way to evade predation by dinosaurs. They possessed neither the time nor the metabolic energy to evolve complex brains. Were it not for that event 66 million years ago, when an asteroid serendipitously struck the Earth, causing the sudden extinction of the dinosaurs, mammals would never have risen to prominence. Humanity would simply not exist. This is not hyperbole, it is scientific fact. And this brings us to a necessary philosophical inquiry. Between dinosaurs and humans, who are the true victors of evolution? Who are the true victors of evolution? Dinosaurs dominated the Earth for 160 million years. Consider the magnitude of that duration. Human civilization has existed for merely a few millennia. The entire human species has only existed for 3 million years. The entire human species has only existed for 3 million years. The entire human species has only existed for 3 million years. The reign of the dinosaurs lasted more than 50 times longer than our own existence. Had that asteroid not accidentally struck, dinosaurs might still be reigning supreme over the planet today. And what of humanity? Given our current trajectory, nuclear proliferation, climate change, environmental pollution, we might well engineer our own extinction. So, consider this. Is high intelligence ultimately an evolutionary triumph or a catastrophic failure? Perhaps one day, after humans have gone extinct, the next intelligent species will excavate our fossils and ask the same question. Humans existed for millions of years. Why did they never escape the solar system? In that future, we may become the next dinosaurs. The failure of dinosaurs to develop civilization was not due to stupidity nor a lack of time. It was because they simply did not require it. Their evolutionary strategy was stable, successful, and sustainable. Why risk gambling on an uncertain future? The emergence of humanity is a miraculous accumulation of coincidences. Climate shifts, disappearing forests forcing us from the trees, bipedalism freeing our hands, mastering fire to consume cooked food, brain development, the emergence of language, and the formation of society. Had any single link in this chain failed, humanity would not exist today. We are not an evolutionary inevitability. We are an evolutionary accident. That dinosaurs did not develop civilization is the norm. That humans did is the anomaly. So, I leave you with a final question. If granted another billion years, would dinosaurs have eventually developed civilization? Or is sapient civilization itself merely a low probability glitch in the universe? Leave your answer in the comments for us to discuss. Don't forget to like and subscribe. In the next episode, we will continue to explore the universe's most spine-chilling truths.